The house was quiet, but it wasn't peace that filled the silence. It was the kind of stillness that comes just before something important breaks through. Mara felt it before she heard the footsteps, a shift in the air, a low hum of something about to surface. Her son, Eli, usually full of wit and noise, entered the room with a heaviness in his eyes that made her heart pause. Something was coming, something he needed to say, and she wasn't sure she was ready to hear it. She held a mug of coffee close to her chest, the warmth spreading through her fingers. These moments were rare, quiet, unhurried, her mind not already racing ahead to the day's to-do list. She took a long sip and let her shoulders drop slightly. It felt peaceful. Then came the sound. Footsteps. Light, slow, like someone unsure they wanted to be heard. She turned just as Eli appeared in the doorway. His dark hoodie hung loose on his lean frame, hands buried in the pockets. His hair was a mess of curls, like he hadn't bothered with a comb, if he'd even slept at all. At 19, Eli was usually sharp with a comeback, always armed with a clever twist of words. But now, his silence had a weight to it, something heavy. "Hey," he said, voice low as he slid into a chair at the kitchen table. Mara set her mug down slowly, her gut already stirring. Something was different. "Hey, sweetheart," she said gently. "Everything okay?" He nodded, but didn't look up. His gaze stayed locked on the wood grain of the table, like it might offer answers. "Can we talk?" he asked after a pause. Just 4 words, but they carried a gravity that pulled at her chest. Her mind spun through possibilities. Was it school? His health? Had someone hurt him? She nodded and moved to sit across from him, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Of course," she said. "Talk to me. What's going on?" He took a breath, long and shaky, still not meeting her eyes. "I've been thinking about something," he said slowly, "and I didn't know who else to talk to." Then he looked up, really looked, and what she saw in his face, uncertainty, fear, trust, tightened her throat. "You've always been the one I could count on," he said. Her heart broke a little, then stitched itself back together. "And you still can," she said, voice steady. "There's this girl," he said after a beat. "Her name's Arya." Mara leaned in slightly, her hands resting on the table. "She's amazing," Eli went on, cheeks tinged pink. "She's smart and kind, funny, like, she sees things in people, and I really like her. But I've never been in anything real before, like, serious, and I'm scared I'll mess it up." Mara let out the breath she'd been holding. It wasn't anything terrible, not the kind of terrible she'd feared, but the way he said it, the way he sat like the ground under him was unsteady, told her it wasn't small either. "I want to do it right," he added, voice low. "But I feel like everyone else just knows how this works, and I'm still figuring it out." She reached across the table and placed her hand over his, giving it a gentle squeeze. "There's no map," she said, "no rule book. You just have your heart and how you treat the person you care about." His fingers curled slightly under hers, but he didn't speak right away. "What if I'm not ready?" he asked quietly. "Or worse, what if I think I am and I just mess it all up?" "Then you learn," Mara said. "You make mistakes, but you grow. That's how it works." He was silent again, then asked in a voice that wavered slightly, "Can I ask you something personal?" She raised an eyebrow, curious. "Of course. You don't have to answer if it's weird." "It's okay. Go ahead." He hesitated, then spoke quickly, like the words might get stuck if he didn't let them out. "How did you know when it was right to be with someone, intimately?" Mara blinked, caught off guard. It wasn't the question she expected, but his eyes were honest, searching. There was nothing crude in the way he asked. He wasn't being inappropriate. He was trying to understand something that mattered. She took a breath, letting an old memory rise before speaking. It was when I felt safe, she said, when I knew there was no pressure, that it was mutual, that I could say no and still be loved and respected. Eli nodded slowly, like her words had turned a key somewhere inside him. That makes sense, he murmured. I think I want to wait. Not forever, just until it feels right. But I also don't want to be clueless when it happens. I want to do it right. That's not clueless, she said. That's wise. He looked up again, and this time the tension in his shoulders had softened, like something locked inside had been given room to breathe. From then on, something between them shifted. Eli started coming home more often. He lingered at dinner, helped with dishes, asked about her day without needing to be asked. He talked more about his classes, the future, about Arya. Her name became familiar, her laugh, her love of old records, the way she tapped her foot when deep in thought. One evening, as the sun melted into a violet sky, Mara was lighting a candle in the kitchen when she heard footsteps again. Eli leaned against the door frame, a half-smile playing at his lips. Got a minute? Always. She said yes. He grinned. We're going out Friday. Her face lit up. That's wonderful. Nervous? He laughed. Yeah, kind of terrified, but kind of ready. She walked over and cupped his face gently. You've grown so much, she said. You're not the same kid who left last fall. You're becoming someone solid, thoughtful. Arya's lucky. He smiled crookedly. I get that from you. Later, after he'd gone to his room, Mara stood at the sink, letting warm water run over her hands. She found herself smiling. There was something unexpected and beautiful in this new stage of life, not just mother and son, but two people navigating what it meant to care, to ask honest questions, to truly show up. That night, she sat on the porch with a glass of wine. The stars were just starting to appear when Eli came out, carrying a blanket. He settled beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. Can I ask you something else? He said. Of course. When it happened for you, the first real relationship, were you scared? She looked up at the stars, remembering the flutter of nerves and hope, and all the things she hadn't had words for back then. Terrified, she said, but also alive. Love does that. It makes you feel everything more intensely. The joy, the fear, the hurt. He nodded slowly. I think I want that, he said. Even the hard parts. I want something real. She turned toward him, surprised by the quiet courage in his voice. That's brave, she said. He gave a soft smile. I'm learning from the best. Friday arrived with all the nervous buzz of a first date. Eli changed shirts 3 times, fussed with his hair, checked his phone over and over. He finally settled on a navy button-down, jeans, and clean sneakers. He looked polished, but still like himself. You look great, Mara said from the hallway. You think she'll like it? I think she already does, she smiled. Just be yourself. That's more than enough. He stepped toward her, emotion behind his eyes. Thanks for everything, he said. I didn't know I could have talks like this with you. I didn't expect it to feel so safe. But now, I don't know what I'd do without it. She pulled him into a hug, her arms strong and sure. Go make a memory, she said, and be kind with her and with yourself. She watched from the window as he drove away. The house was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet now, not empty, just changed. The house felt unusually still the next morning. Mara sat alone at the kitchen table, the light outside still soft with the early blue of dawn. Eli hadn't come home late, just on time, but he hadn't said much either. Just a quiet, "Good night, Mom," and a smile that was equal parts nerves and something else she couldn't quite read. Now she sat with her coffee, the mug warm between her palms, and thought about how fast things were shifting. Not in loud, dramatic ways, but subtly, like the changing of seasons, one leaf at a time. She didn't want to hover. She'd promised herself she wouldn't, but she couldn't help the ache that came with letting go, even just a little. She was about to get up when she heard footsteps, his again, slower than usual. Eli entered the room with his hair still tousled from sleep, eyes heavy but soft. "Hey," he said, sliding into the chair across from her. "Morning," Mara said, watching him carefully. "How was last night?" He shrugged, then smiled. Genuine this time. "It was good," he said. "Really good." "Tell me everything," she said lightly, but her eyes were serious. Eli hesitated for a moment, then chuckled. "We went to this little diner she likes, real old school. They played jazz and had those tiny jukeboxes at each booth." Mara smiled. "Sounds charming." "It was," he nodded. "We talked for like 3 hours. Didn't even notice the time. She told me about her dad and how they used to listen to vinyl records on Sundays, and how she wants to open a bookstore one day with a coffee shop in the back." His eyes lit up as he spoke, and Mara watched as something unfolded in him, a quiet blooming. "She's so intentional," he said. "Like when she listens, she really listens." "That sounds rare," Mara said, "and special." "Yeah," Eli murmured, and then, after a pause, "I didn't know it could feel like that. So easy, but it also scared me a little, because I kept thinking, what if I ruin it by being too much, or not enough?" Mara leaned forward. "That fear is part of it," she said. "It means it matters." He nodded, quiet. Then, we held hands in the parking lot. Just for a second, but it felt like more than a second, like something opened. Mara didn't speak for a moment, just reached across and brushed a crumb from his sleeve. "Sometimes," she said, "the smallest things are what stay with us the longest." Eli's gaze dropped to his hands. "Is it normal," he asked, "to feel both really happy and kind of terrified at the same time?" "Absolutely," she said. "That's what love does. It breaks you open. It asks you to feel without a guarantee." Later that week, Mara found herself standing in the grocery store, staring at a shelf of teas. She wasn't really thinking about tea, though. She was thinking about Eli, about how she'd once held his whole world in her hands, and now she was only part of it. That was how it was supposed to be. Still, it surprised her how hard it was. When she got home, she noticed something new, a record player sitting on the end of Eli's desk. Not fancy, probably secondhand, but clearly placed with care. "Hey," he said, walking into the kitchen as she unpacked groceries. "Arya gave me a list of her favorite records. I'm going to try to find them." Mara smiled. "You really like her?" "Yeah," he said. Then quieter, "I think I'm falling." She turned slowly, her hands still resting on a bag of apples. "You don't have to say it back to anyone until it's real," she said gently. "But you should say it to yourself when it is." He nodded. "I think I'm trying to figure out what love means without just copying what I've seen." Mara paused. That struck a chord, a deep one. "You know," she said after a moment, "that's something even adults struggle with. We think we're supposed to follow a script, but real love doesn't stick to a script. It's clumsy and honest and sometimes painfully quiet." Eli looked at her for a long time, then said, "I'm glad I can ask you stuff. I don't think most people get to have this kind of thing with their mom." She swallowed the lump in her throat and smiled. "Me too." A few nights later, Mara found herself standing outside Eli's bedroom door, holding a folded blanket. She almost knocked, almost asked how things were going, but instead, she listened. There was music playing softly, something with a slow piano and gentle vinyl crackle. His voice came through the door in low tones. He was talking on the phone. "No, I like that you said it. It doesn't scare me," he was saying. Then a pause. "Well, maybe it does a little, but that's good, right? Means it's real." She smiled to herself, then walked away, leaving the blanket folded on the couch. The following weekend, Eli asked if Arya could come over for dinner. Mara spent the whole afternoon making pasta from scratch, something she hadn't done in years. She found herself lighting candles, fluffing cushions, playing her old Nora Jones playlist on low volume. When Arya arrived, she was nervous but bright-eyed. Mara noticed how easily she laughed, how she looked Eli in the eye when he spoke, how she helped clear the table afterward without being asked. As Mara watched them laugh over dishes, she realized something. She wasn't losing her son. She was gaining someone he trusted with the parts of him she'd once been the only one to see. Later that night, after Arya had left and the house had gone quiet again, Eli sat beside her on the porch. "She likes you," he said. "I like her too." He was quiet for a while, then said, "I used to think love would make me smaller, like I'd lose myself in it. And now? Now I think the right love makes room. It doesn't trap you, it expands you." Mara turned to him, her eyes soft in the porch light. "You're starting to understand something it takes some people decades to learn." He gave a small, lopsided smile. "I had a good teacher." They sat in silence for a while, the stars above them quiet witnesses. Somewhere in the house, the record player was still spinning, slow and steady. Mara leaned her head on his shoulder. Love, she thought, was not just something you felt. It was something you practiced, something you returned to, something you built moment by moment, even in silence, even in the quiet between. Have you ever had a moment like this with a parent, a child, or someone you love deeply, where silence said more than words? Share your story in the comments. Let's talk about the quiet spaces where love truly lives. If you're drawn to stories that explore emotion, connection, and the psychology behind the choices we make in relationships, subscribe to The Forbidden Mind. New episodes drop weekly, each one peeling back the layers of what it means to feel, to choose, and to care. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a moment of the journey. Because the most important truths often live in the spaces we don't know how to name yet.